chances are that you also came across the following exciting headline in your newsfeed. Viagra is supposed to help against Alzheimer's disease. I know it sounds like a bad joke or like clickbait, but it's not that stupid if you take a look at how Viagra works. Because Viagra works vasodilating, so it promotes the blood flow, the blood circulation, and this finally is the reason why many penises start working again. They are supplied with the blood they need to be able to erect again. And surprise, surprise, not only penises need blood to work, but also brains. Because we know from so many studies that interventions that help your heart, that are good for your heart and promote the blood circulation, like exercising or a healthy diet, which prevents getting arteriosclerosis, are also good for your brain. They help your brain to stay healthy up to a higher age. Because when our brain is supplied with enough blood, it also gets enough oxygen and it gets all the nutritions it needs. But just because it sounds plausible, just because it sounds logical that Viagra might help against Alzheimer's, of course does not mean that it really works. And especially when it comes to Alzheimer's, we've seen thousands of interventions that sound logical, but in the end all failed. So let's take a look at empirical studies. Let's take a look if it really works. And up to now, maybe the best study that has been published has recently been published in the journal Neurology. Because for this study, almost 270,000 men over an age of 40 were tracked for about, on average, 5 years, some even longer. And during this time, 1,119 of them developed an erectile dysfunction. So for any reason, their penis did no longer work as it was supposed to work. And many of them were then prescribed sexual stimulants like Viagra. And what the scientists now could do was to take a look whether those who had taken Viagra in comparison to those who did not, so how many of them got Alzheimer's. And indeed it turned out that in the group who had received Viagra, less men got Alzheimer's. On average, their risk for Alzheimer's was reduced for about 18%. And what made the results even more compelling and more trustable and more believable was that they found a tendency that those who had taken even more Viagra, who were prescribed Viagra more than 20 times up to 50 times, for them the risk of getting Alzheimer was reduced even more. It was reduced about 44%. And for those who had taken even more, those who were prescribed Viagra more than 50 times, for them the risk was still reduced 35%. So at this point you already see, if Viagra is really the driving force of these results, there seems to be some kind of saturation effect. Taking gigantic amounts of Viagra doesn't seem to make sense. But, and now comes the big but, you already heard that I'm quite skeptical, and many other scientists are skeptical as well, whether Viagra is really driving those effects, because the scientists could not control for very important confounding variables, like for example the vitality, the physical activity, the fitness of the participants. And it seems obvious that those participants who feel quite strong, they feel that they are in good shape, and maybe also those who have still good social contacts, and we know from other studies that social support, social contacts are also a good protective factor against Alzheimer's. It just makes sense that it's those participants, those men, who more often say to their doctor, well, you know, I still want to have fun, I still want to have sex, so please prescribe Viagra to me. And therefore it's absolutely plausible, of course we don't know for sure, but it's plausible that Viagra is not the reason why their risk for Alzheimer's was reduced, but it was just correlated with their more healthy, more active, maybe more social lifestyle. And something else that makes the results of this study even more questionable is, and almost nobody reports about this, but if you take a look at their analysis, they only found an effect of Viagra after 1 year and after 5 years, but the effect was not significant after 3 years. Of course, this might be a statistical coincidence, and with more statistical power, maybe the effect would become significant as well, but it might also be another hint that Viagra is not really driving those effects. And the scientists themselves say, and I agree with them, that the results of this study are interesting and they are an interesting starting point for future studies, but we now definitely need randomized controlled studies in which we can control for very important confounding variables like, for example, the physical activity, the fitness of the participants. That's it for today. I hope you found this episode stimulating, and maybe we will see you next time.